The sound of laughter echoed softly in the dining hall. Plates clicked, silverware danced, and the smell of roasted lamb and spice lingered in the air. Inside the presidential residence of Ouagadougou, it was supposed to be a quiet night. A small, private dinner. Only his closest allies, his most trusted men, his inner circle. President Ibrahim Traoré sat at the head of the table, shoulders relaxed, the weight of the day resting on his uniformed frame. He looked around the room, offering a tired smile. The summit with the Sahel Alliance had gone longer than expected, and the foreign pressure on his reforms was growing. But tonight was not about speeches, not about power. It was about bread and presence. As his glass was refilled and the final course arrived, he leaned in to say something to his defense minister. Then it happened. He stopped mid-sentence. His left hand rose, slowly, toward his neck. His eyes blinked unnaturally fast. A muscle in his jaw twitched. The spoon in his right hand slipped and hit the plate with a soft chime. It was subtle, too subtle for most, but not for his bodyguard stationed behind the velvet curtains. "Protocol Delta," the guard shouted. In a second, the hall turned from warm to cold. Traoré stood, but only barely. One step. Then his knees buckled. Another guard caught him just before he hit the floor. The others surrounded him. A second minister clutched his stomach. Sweat broke across the room like a wave. The laughter was gone. So was the trust. Someone had tried to assassinate Ibrahim Traoré. Not with a sniper, not with a bomb, but with food. Right at his dinner table. He had always said he would rather die with a pen in his hand than live as a puppet. His enemies heard that. But they didn't just fear his speeches. They feared his silence. And so they chose the one moment where he was most vulnerable. At ease. At peace. Surrounded by friends. Born in Bondoukoui in 1988, Ibrahim Traoré wasn't the kind of man you expected to become a national symbol. But revolutions rarely begin with predictable men. He joined the military out of duty, not ambition. But even in his early days, fellow soldiers noticed something different. He didn't just carry weapons, he carried questions. Why were French bases still active on Burkinabe soil? Why were contracts signed that benefited foreign corporations more than the farmers whose land they worked? Why were soldiers dying in the north while politicians dined in gold-plated halls? He rose quickly, quietly. By the time he led the coup in 2022, many were surprised. But the people, the students, the soldiers, the workers, they celebrated. Here was someone who did not smile for the West, who said what others only whispered. Traoré began restructuring the state. He nationalized resources, he pushed out French troops. He cut deals with Mali and Niger, and formed the Sahel Alliance, an African security pact outside of Western control. The West noticed. So did the old African elite, and so, slowly, the smiles in diplomatic photographs became thinner. Invitations stopped. Threats arrived, veiled in economic language. But Traoré didn't bend. He knew that if he was to fall, it wouldn't be from the outside. It would come from within. The dinner had been planned 2 weeks in advance. A private event, strictly off the official calendar. Only 12 people invited, 4 ministers, 3 generals, 2 aides, and 3 personal guards. The chef was known, the servers vetted, the table polished to reflect the flickering chandeliers. Traoré had insisted on local dishes. No imports. No wines from Europe. He wanted a meal that reminded everyone of where they came from and who they served. The chef, named Musa, had cooked for Traoré for over 3 years. He knew the president's palate. Light spice, fresh ginger, no cream. But something was different that night. The main course, grilled lamb with a honey glaze, was served with a new side, a rare herb sauce that Musa claimed was recommended by a new sous chef. That sous chef had joined only 3 days earlier. Security clearance had been rushed. No one thought much of it, until Traoré's lips turned pale. As the guards carried Traoré from the dining hall to the secure medical unit beneath the presidential wing, one thing was clear. He had been poisoned. But he wasn't the only one. Defense Minister Zakaria coughed violently in the hallway. His aide vomited into a stairwell. Of the 12 at the table, 4 showed symptoms. Within minutes, the entire palace was on lockdown. Communications were cut. External signals jammed. No one in, no one out. Inside the kitchen, Musa stood frozen, trembling. The sous chef was gone, disappeared. Later, surveillance footage revealed he had left through the back service gate just 12 minutes before the poisoning. His name, it turned out, was fake. His file was forged. Fingerprints were wiped. He had entered Burkina Faso on a humanitarian visa under a different identity, tied to an international NGO funded by a European nation. The ingredients for the sauce? Flown in on a diplomatic flight 3 days prior. Unchecked, Traoré survived. Barely. The poison used was a nerve agent, one that paralyzes muscle response while keeping the victim conscious. It's not meant to kill immediately. It's meant to torture. But the medical team, trained for emergencies, had acted fast. Induced vomiting, counteragents, ice packs, oxygen. He woke up in a dark room with one eye swollen, but alive. His first words were, "How many others?" The answer, 3 hospitalized, 1 in critical condition, 1 server still missing. He sat up, took a breath, and asked for his journal. He wrote, "They tried to kill me while I broke bread. So now I break silence." The next morning, a broadcast went live. No press, no statements, just Traoré, seated, pale, with a scarred lip and IV still in his hand. He spoke calmly. They did not send a drone. They did not hire a sniper. They sent a spoon. He paused, then added, "I now know what sits at our table is not just food, but fear. And I have eaten it, and I am still here." The broadcast went viral. Across Africa, people watched in disbelief. Some cried. Some cheered. In France, silence. In Washington, denial. In Burkina Faso, fury. The response was swift. 3 intelligence officers were arrested. 1 diplomat was expelled. The NGO involved was banned from operating in the country. A list was made, 26 names, all tied to foreign lobbies, internal traitors, or silent financiers. One by one, they were summoned, questioned. Some disappeared. Some fled. The sous chef was never found. But Traoré didn't need him anymore. The message had been sent, and his answer was clear. From that day forward, Traoré changed. He no longer attended public banquets. No foreign food was served at events. All meals were personally inspected. He no longer laughed freely. His speeches became sharper, his tone colder. But his support? It grew. He had become a symbol, not just of survival, but of defiance. He had not just lived through an assassination attempt. He had lived through a betrayal and turned it into a battle cry. In the months that followed, Burkina Faso accelerated its reforms. Gold contracts were torn up. Military bases were restructured. Pan-African schools were opened. A statue was commissioned, not of Traoré with a sword or flag, but of him seated at a dinner table, head bowed, hands resting beside an untouched plate. Beneath it, one line, they served him poison. He fed them resistance. In the end, they failed. They failed not just to kill a man, but to kill what he represented. And the dinner table, once a symbol of ease, diplomacy, and peace, became a symbol of awareness. Because Traoré didn't just survive a meal, he turned it into a message, and in that message, the world heard something it feared most. We are awake now,